Green. We're green. It was green.
Anyway,
Yes. Or what do we got?
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Sound okay for you? This is the February regular board meeting, and we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Caroline, can you do a roll call so we can establish for the record that we have a quorum? Here?
Here.
Mike Smith.
Here.
Freddie Sarver.
Here.
Great, thank you. We have the meeting minutes from January 2026 to review. Under new business, can we? That will get old.
Yes.
Under new business, Midway in 2601 Herringer. It says because the applicants had preserved a historic structure on the property called the Magazine Building, they can only construct the addition as presented in the application. I don't feel that's correct. I recall Jim Corbin mentioning that the applicants bought the property, preserved two structures, and therefore he felt that was some sort of a reason to consider allowing them to build in the, I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but does anybody else recall that?
I wasn't here.
You weren't here.
Where was this?
This is under new business, Midway. It's following Bayview Estates covenants and restrictions was reviewed, and I think I noted in that very clearly states that no structure should be built within the setbacks. And it would be interesting to note how the ZBA handles that, because previous month they had reviewed and approved, or they had denied structure
Right.
in the side yard. And then I think Jim Corbin said, well, for the record, or something to that effect, that the applicants had purchased the property, restored two buildings, and therefore that was a plus for the community.
I think it was a part of the consideration because they
Consideration, right. So I don't know how we can.
If we take out because, and that's almost says it.
As a consideration. Oh, that, it was noted. Shall we note who said that? That the applicants had preserved historic structure on the property, or actually two historic structures, the house, the residence, and the magazine building. And just leave it at that?
I think so. Without, this is more than I want.
Okay, that's my main comment on this. Any other comments?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And we have the report to the village board, which, because our meeting was relatively short in January, the report is short. And then first item on the agenda is, under new business, is 26-02 Shaw Harbor Manor LLC, General Smith Drive. Applicants requesting subdivision review to subdivide 3 lots from their tax parcel with frontage on North Broad and Hamilton Streets. The properties in the Village Residential and Historic Overlay Districts, as well as the National Register District. And a public hearing has been scheduled for this evening. Our materials include the general zoning application, site plan review application, the long form environmental assessment form, and the copy of the site survey indicating where the new 3 lots would be in relation to the original property, as well as a letter of authorization from the owner authorizing LaFave, White, and McGivern to represent them for this project. And I believe you're here. Would you be willing to explain what, identify for the record who you are, and then maybe tell us a little bit about it? And I think some of the people here are interested in what you're going to say. So you're not only speaking to us, but to the people.
And I did get, I don't know if, I think you asked for this. I don't know if we sent that one along with
Site
it.
plan review. We have that.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you did the signed versions.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
There are copies of the maps.
Oh, great. A lot
Here,
of
full size, anybody. See what they're doing. These want to subdivide 3 lots. Essentially. Outside of the large parcel that he has. It'd be 3 essentially residential lots. That's 1, 2, 3.
Well, 1 on Hamilton frontage and 2 on Broad, between the 2 properties that are already located on the
Yes.
corner, what I presume was originally
Where
the
the
property.
houses are already, correct. Also, and where he's working with the mayor and the village engineer. We're planning to grant them a parking area for the village park down there, but they haven't come up with it yet. But they'll be able to, they just did the village park across the way there.
In this,
That'll
in
be
this
in this
corner?
corner somewhere, so people.
Do you know how much area that
It's
there's?
gonna be either 4 to 6 parking spaces is what they're discussing. But we haven't gotten information yet as far as final layout of grant, but they're looking at possibly doing it as well. So that's basically, it looks like 3 residential lots and possibly parking for the public area, to use the park.
But that's a separate issue, okay?
That would be, that doesn't necessarily need to go through subdivision, that's just something he's doing, he's in the process of this, and I'll still in the survey.
And my understanding, I think of what you're saying is a public entity like the village, Sackets Harbor, or the Sackets Harbor School, or the New York State Parks, they're not subject to local zoning. They don't need to.
Probably not.
No, I think that's what I'm making.
So if they want to put a parking lot
If they
there.
want to put a parking lot there, they can. Although personally, I think that's something that should come before the public for discussion.
Correct.
Because,
Yeah.
Right. Right. But anyway, that's not for us tonight, but that,
Right, but that is something.
but that is part of the big picture here.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We can. There's that here. I have received a couple letters from property owners questioning. I have one from Susan Haldeman and one from David Haldeman. And we will open the public hearing in a little bit to provide opportunities for discussion. But both letters are questioning how this board will proceed and posing some questions about what have we done regarding the scrutiny of this. And this board hasn't done anything yet in terms of that. So this is the first opportunity for review and discussion. There was one question, something about that there is no subdivision application in the materials. The village doesn't have a subdivision application form right now. The village is under process of creating that. And for a number of years, we've used the site plan review application as the next closest thing to it, which essentially is pretty much what would be included on a subdivision application form. And the zoning law includes requirements that may be asked of the applicant, and that would be our most direct guideline for what can you require of the applicant. And that directly comes from New York State planning law. So, and there was a question, have we contacted New York authorities or federal? To the best of my knowledge, there's no reason that this board has to consult New York State nor the federal government. Yes, it's a national register district, but there's no federal authority governing our local zoning. And in terms of New York State, in some cases, New York State Historic Preservation can get involved, which happened in the past couple of years with Madison Barracks and the subdivision along the waterfront. But the only reason that was triggered was a permit from DEC was required for stormwater management, and DEC interjected and said, we have questions about the historic site. And so the New York State Historic Preservation Office did get involved with that, and they in fact have now, as a result of that review, required that the design of each home, the site plan review, be shuttled to their office for comments. But this is not, there is no DEC permit here. There is no Department of Health permit, and those would be the circumstances that could trigger a state agency involvement. Okay, and then there is the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, which we have to comply with, and the applicant has completed a 13-page form, and that has a lot of questions about endangered species, water quality, public health, aesthetics, historic preservation. And this form is used if we were reviewing the construction of a nuclear power plant, and it's used in this community because of the National Register District if you're building a garage in certain zoning districts. So it's all sorts of things. And then there are thresholds that are used to guide our evaluation of the impact. And if this proposal included demolition of a structure, that is likely to trigger a note of greater significance than parceling off acreage for the construction of a home. Okay, so that highlights just a few of them that have been submitted thus far. I have a couple of questions, and then other board members may have a question too, and then maybe it would make sense to have a public hearing. But in the environmental assessment form, there are questions like, will this require additional water consumption? And the form says yes. And then there are other questions that are no. So clearly it's, these lots are intended for residential development at some point.
That's to my knowledge.
Do you have any information about what is intended for these 3 lots?
I think it would just be like single family house.
Would those be marketed just a for sale sign, lot for sale? Or do you know, I guess what I'm getting at, is there already a plan in place for those that so-and-so's uncle is going to build this one? And okay, so right now it's a blank slate, a land piece of land.
Right, he may be selling them as vacant lots. I'm not entirely sure on.
Okay, and there was another comment in correspondence. It's not a blank slate that's entirely open for development of any sort. Our zoning district
They'd have to come back through when they go to build.
would be subject to the historic overlay district regulations. And, you know, that's not foolproof. This board's been criticized for what's being built down at Madison Barracks, which went through New York State Historic Preservation Office. So, you know, you can only do so much, but things like materials, design,
colors and all that.
colors, and of course, height and spacing, that's integral to any housing development. And they, all of it would have to meet zoning code regulations. Okay, so that was my first question. And then my second question is, do you have any information on any deed restrictions or covenants that are attached to the property?
We didn't come across as far as
You didn't come across,
any restrictions in the deeds, covenants or restrictions. Limiting subdivision or anything. Easements or anything like that.
what did you refer to for that?
The deeds.
The deed.
Go through the deeds. They would usually list them. We didn't come across.
I see.
The only restrictions that we came across would be your zoning restrictions,
Right.
really.
The reason I ask is it's clearly a historic property. And on General Smith Drive, the old stone mill, 30 years ago, maybe more, one owner was proposing to have that be something like a bed and breakfast. And I think General Smith Drive residents did some homework and objected, and lo and behold, in the deed, this it can only be a single family home. Similarly, a number of years ago, in recent past, Christ Church was for sale by the Episcopal Diocese, and there's a buyer. And then it was with the intention of making it a home. And then a little research found that there's a restriction in that deed from, I believe, the person that gave the property, which was Elisha Camp, that should ever not be a church. And Dave, you, a historical site, you might have some more information.
Wasn't Camp.
It was, who was
I
it?
think his name was
White?
White.
Okay.
Go back to the descendant.
To go back to the descendants. So, okay, so another 1800 structure that, had something, and I believe that was in the abstract, not necessarily.
You'll see a lot of times a list of restrictions, covenants and restrictions. That you see in this.
Right. So anyway, those are two things that are, I think, important in this. So before we open the hearing, Merle, Mike, Craig, anything you want to ask?
Should we complete the packet first, or is that
The environmental assessment form?
or in the application?
Yeah, let's do that. There were a couple items, and I've highlighted these that I can give to you. It's marked that it's in a designated inland waterway. It's a coastal area. It is. I mean, it's I don't know if it's not a designated inland waterway, but,
The proximity, you'll flag them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Across the roads, water.
Yeah. Park serving the area, Washington Park, the little down the street. And then, the water district should be identified as Sackets Harbor, Village of Sackets Harbor. And, land use, it's less than 3 acres in terms of impervious services, and we just don't like to leave anything blank. And lastly, there is a, predominant soil types, depth to bedrock, less than 6 feet, rocky loam, 100%, it's well drained. So on your behalf, I added those factual details. And then under attributes of the National Register District, 1812 military history and architectural history, and the scenic byway, Seaway Trail, Seaway Byway. Going through the part 2 of the form, which is just as long as the applicant's 13 pages. Impact on land at this point, these are lines on a map. Impact on geologic resources, no. Surface water, no. Groundwater, impact on flooding, impact on air, plants and animals, agricultural resources, aesthetics, impact on historic and archaeologic resources. This is the one in any project in the historic overlay district we pay particular attention to. Yes, it is in a National Register district. And, the options are there is no impact or small impact or moderate to large. And, it's not in an area, subject to archaeologic surveys. It's not designated as an archaeologic site. So the question would arise, are we comfortable saying it would be not a moderate to large impact? And here are clues to help with that determination. The proposed action may result in the destruction or alteration of all or a part of the site or property. The proposed action may result in the alteration of the property's setting or integrity. Proposed action may result in the introduction of visual elements which are out of character with the site or property or alter its setting. And again, the thresholds are whether it's a small, no impact or small impact or moderate to large impact.
None of those things really apply for just subdividing.
Doesn't meet the criteria because we're just drawing lines.
Right.
Yeah, at this.
But I believe, at least by the correspondence I've had, there's questioning whether it would, whether the opening the door to residential development would degrade the integrity of the parcel. So that's why I'm going through this, to give it time for discussion.
The question that I have is, where is the lot, the front of the lot margin? Is it 25 feet from the middle of the street? Is it 15 feet from the edge of the street?
It'd be 25 from center, typically. It's right
25 from center? Okay,
Put it on there if I just went to margins, but this is the edge of pavement. So I'm not showing center.
Which is, the dotted line.
Yeah, but these are, that's actually, this one's 100 feet wide, this street. You're quite a ways from center. You're probably 50 feet from center on that one. Broad Street's a wide street. This one's only 50, so you'd be 25 from center.
okay. I don't think most people understand that your lot doesn't begin at the edge of the road. It begins,
Typically back a sidewalk in the building.
yes, 15 feet back from the road. And you've taken that into consideration. Other places in the world call it easements, but we call it what, street margin here?
Yeah, depending on the place, some, like, the state highways, a lot of times are owned in fee by the state. Town and county highways, a lot of times you actually own to the center of the road and it's an easement that they maintain out, whatever the width of that road is, that depends. I mean, most roads are about 50. Like sometimes you'll see 66. I've seen 60. They can vary.
But the minimum square footage of 10,000 is.
That would be from, we would take that from the margin. We wouldn't include the road in that.
Right.
Well, and in this case, the site is the whole lot over 2 acres? Is that 2.17 or is that the remaining?
That's probably the remaining.
Right, so
Yeah, it was 2.9.
so it was close to 3
Almost
and
3, yeah,
what
it's
you're
about
proposing
3/4.
is a little over 2. Okay, so
That's remaining.
trying to quantify
Yeah.
impact, which is pretty nebulous here. It's subjective. What is small, what is moderate,
Right.
what is large. And I've walked past from all 4 sides and in recognition of it as a stately property on a large lot. If there are 3 new lots from General Smith perspective.
Right.
It still looks like an imposing home with a wide open front lawn and clear side yards back to a point.
Right. It's still a
Um,
large, I mean, you still have over 2 acres, which is large. In a village.
Right. For a
Right.
village where we have
Right.
some houses built right on the street.
Right.
So,
Which a lot of this was largely vegetation, not that long
A couple
ago.
years ago, yeah. So are we comfortable with going that it would be a small impact in terms of the integrity of the environment? Or do you want to go bigger than that? And if that's the case, I think we need to pause and, because then there's another level of form of response to fill out in our conclusion to do it correctly.
The environmental impact statement.
No, not that, but we have to rationalize it and explain it. And I don't think I'm prepared to do that this evening, but
Great.
and this just, we don't typically run into anything where we raise this question. When there's a demolition in the historic district, it seems like there's valid reason for that. New York State and evaluating Madison Barracks, they said the project should not be approved because of the loss of, or the impact on the historic integrity. And I said, well, this community already decided that it's okay to have houses there. And then they said, well, then here's what, let's talk about mitigation. How do we mitigate the degree of impact on this? So that's how that went. So we're not, I don't feel we're on the verge of, oh, is this have to have an impact statement? We just need to say, and it has a bearing on what we do with our discussion and vote to approve or deny. This is just one step, but it is a required legal step. So I'm going to make sure we do it correctly.
What's the lowest threshold that was the option?
A no or a small impact. And
Environmental impact.
right, and environmental means public health, aesthetic,
That's how I see this.
as what?
This as no impact environmentally to subdivide. The impact becomes what you do with it after.
Mhm.
Are we ready to declare this a complete application yet?
No,
No.
but we are, I'm asking, are we ready to finish up the secret form? How do you feel about the degree of impact, Merle?
I don't think subdividing without plans for a building or whatever can really assess it any differently than you've mentioned, Craig. This is just a subdivision. We're just subdividing land. Then we've got another set of applications to decide on whether or not it fits all the criteria in our site plan requirements. But no, it's other than environmental impact, other than the impact of what the public feels. I don't have any reservations about it.
Okay, so in terms of the New York State environmental review, you're okay with proceeding to determine that there's no significant, and that's the terminology, no significant environmental impact on the environment due to our action, which is reviewing and potentially approving, not approving, but potentially approving. So is that where someone want to make a motion?
Was this the application completion or is this just?
No, this is just this state.
That requires a separate motion just for
Yes.
that?
Mhm. That we determined there would be
I'll
no
make that.
significant adverse.
I'll make the motion that we determine that this there's no significant adverse impact.
Second?
Considered a negative declaration, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I second it.
So Craig and Merle, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Now. Any other comments before we open the public hearing?
That's it.
Questions?
Complete application part.
No, I think let's hear what the public raises as questions and go from there. Because there might be something further we want to receive. Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing for comment. And we typically are a new rule, I guess, for the village board is that we limit comments to 3 minutes per individual. So, anybody? Yes,
Yeah,
so you could please tell us
yeah.
for the record who you are.
I'm Jay Rubin. I live on West Hamilton Street. This is not a question and it's probably premature. I don't mean it to sound like a not in my backyard, but it is in my front yard. And honestly, my only concern is what will be built. And if it was just John and Rob building houses, I wouldn't even ask because everything they touch is nicer than when they found it. So I guess my hope is that, and you said it, Janet, the whole historic overlay thing is it's not carved in stone. But I hope it's close to it because it just has such a nice feel. That I'd hate to see it. And I'm gonna be looking at something right in front of my window.
Right.
And I'm just gonna be optimistic, but a little concerned, of what's
Right.
built. So that's it, just.
And just in a follow-up, I personally would think, based on seeing 2 properties they've worked on,
They're beautiful.
I would think they wouldn't want something not suitable in their backyard.
That's the hope.
So, I mean, that's a point, I think,
Yeah.
but that's neither here nor there. But so thank you, Jay.
I mean, that's all gonna go through. site
Yeah,
plan.
exactly. It's-
But the ultimate, I can't really.
No, I know, it's premature,
But yeah.
just, but thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, so I sent an email to you.
Yeah. Can you introduce yourself for the record?
Yes, hi, I'm David Haldeman. I live on 206 North Broad Street, directly across the street from the Camp Management Estate.
Okay, thank you.
I sent out an email late this afternoon. I'm not sure if you've.
I
received-
forwarded it and
Yeah.
everybody's got it. Thank
Okay.
you.
So,
Yeah.
Anyway. So, I did a little light reading. Anyway, so what I've determined is, that, we are in the historic overlay. And I believe that, thanks for timing me. I believe that, this board also serves as the, historic review.
Correct.
So, we've got 2 boards here, I would like you to consider the fact that this application is wholly inadequate. For instance, the environmental impact statement, whatever you call this secret form,
Mhm.
is in many places incorrect. And a lot of important information is missing. For instance, there is a DEC environmental impact in there, and it gives a number. And I don't believe there was any description of what that is. And so the community doesn't know what DEC.
That's referring to what was on Ambrose Street. It was an oil tank farm and it was a site that was remediated for contaminated soil.
That relates.
It's the same, they got tagged, I did a subdivision for Bolton. and it's the
Right.
same
It-
number.
Because
It's-
this property is within,
If you look at the form, it says is there within a distance of whatever it is, 1.5 miles, and it's on Ambrose Street. Partway down, so that's what that is. So it's not incorrect. It's just, and it has no real bearing on this proposal at all.
Okay. So I get some more time for that explanation, right? So the,
47 more seconds.
anyway, so, the camp, estate is like a jewel of it's one of very few large properties. So now it's going to be considered a smaller property. And I would argue that the entire property is part of the historic monument, not just the building and whatever they decide to divide. The other point I'd like to make is this is a minor division because it's only 3 properties. But keep in mind the property is large enough for a major subdivision. They're already talking about subdividing to give land to the village. But because it's private property, it still has to go through a subdivision. They can't sell it or give it to the village unless it's subdivided. And then there's room for at least 2 more lots. So it seems that by calling it a minor subdivision and then doing a second one later, they're avoiding the scrutiny that they would have to go through for a major subdivision.
I'm not so sure they would need to subdivide that.
That could be an easement.
Could be an easement. It could be an easement that they granted to the village.
That doesn't.
Anyway, so it could be an end around of the.
I see what you're saying.
Of doing a major subdivision. And then the other thing is, because there is no division form, you're using the, what was it called? The
Site plan review.
site plan review. Well, there's a lot of documentation required for a site plan review. And it clearly says that you can't subdivide without saying what the present and future use is and also describing the structures that will be built. And so that document seems to require that.
Okay, thank you. Regarding potential future subdivisions, it's sure they're saying 3 lots and.
So
But-
parking wouldn't really qualify.
Right.
Because that's not gonna go through, it's not a Department of Health issue.
Right.
It's not a residential lot. You still have a time frame, even if you were gonna turn it into a major, like if you do 3 this year, you still can't do more than 2 more. And there's, to my knowledge, no plans to do any more. But you can't do 1 a year and keep doing it. They'll trigger a major if you were to try to do 2 more next year or whatever. It doesn't, you can't just.
And in terms of what's required in the zoning law for submission to the subdivision, it's the items that would pertain to this. Now, there is no water or sewer connection required here. There is no new road required here. There are no new power lines required here. There's no drainage on site required. There's no stormwater management. So a lot of what's listed is not applicable because all that exists here. And there are no plans for the structures because it's leaving lines on the map. And I don't mean that in a
The
joking way.
document that they filled out says it's required. The site plan,
right, but that's right. But we're using that in lieu of a subdivision form, but basically I guess a better answer is when, let's say you buy the lot right across the street from you and you want to build a home for your brother or whatever, you would then have a site plan review application before whoever's on the board at that time that would then look at how tall is the building, where is it situated, does it meet setbacks and that sort of thing.
well,
But
the fact that it's being subdivided implies development and it implies sale of the land because otherwise there's no reason.
absolutely.
Yeah, but you're not gonna spend money for the design without getting approval for a subdivision.
Well, plus they're not,
You got that turned down, but you spent. the
Right,
design.
and that brings me to the last point is that because it is historically sensitive, you won't know if there's any archaeological findings until they excavate for new foundations. And then all of a sudden, work has to stop to complete that assessment. And so it's a buyer beware situation for whoever buys that property because they could get into serious trouble with all the archaeological issues that might come up.
well, as far as I'm aware, there's no regulation that says the subdivider, the owner, Shaw Harbor, has to do an archaeologic excavation on that site.
No, they don't. The people that would purchase the lot would then be at risk. And then this planning board would have to sort out all that stuff with the site plan.
What's the intention?
Okay.
What's the end state for what they want to do?
To my knowledge, just those 3 lots would be residential. lots.
But to sell, to keep for family?
I don't think he's keeping.
But you say he's the corporation that owns the property? The developer that owns
It's the
the
owner.
property now?
Yeah, that would be his choice to do what he,
Yeah.
once he's.
They're in
subdivided,
the,
he can
they are a developer.
Yeah. They wanted to do that in the first place.
Okay, thank you for your comments, David.
Thank you.
You,
Hi, Kevin McCauley, I live on East Hamilton. Interesting to be there. I do have one question and I haven't got figured out only because of the discussions that were going on here. I did the awful Google search and it's AI, so it may not be it. And I don't have time to go wander down. But it says boundary alterations, proposals reducing or enlarging the boundaries of a national historic site must be submitted to the National Park Service. Reduction is generally only approved if the area has lost its integrity or is included in error. So it sounds like if this whole site is part of a National Historic Site, not just the building, then this does need to be submitted to NPS. One other thing, somebody asked, and we don't know who you are. It really wasn't announced.
Oh, he announced it at the meeting.
Okay, I didn't hear.
I wasn't here during the beginning.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I'm Steve Gracie with the Fayette Giver. I'm the surveyor.
Okay, you're with me, just a survey. I didn't know if you were an attorney
No,
or whatever.
just the land surveyor.
You just get to be the answer.
Yeah.
Got it.
And you get to answer questions for.
Okay, that's all I have.
Can you go over that again? Yeah.
Well, this was just, again, this is only AI, so I take it with a grain of salt.
Okay.
What I put in is subdividing National Historic Landmark. And what popped up was key considerations and rules, federal and state involvement, private property rights, and then there was a bunch of stuff. I just jumped to the 5th one, boundary alterations. Proposals for reducing or enlarging boundaries of an NHL, what they, I guess.
National Historic Landmark.
Must be submitted to the National Park Service, NPS. Reduction is generally only approved if the area has lost its integrity or was included in error.
Does this property meet the threshold of being a National Historic
no, it's
Landmark?
not. It's in a National Register district, but that is different than being a national landmark, like Independence Hall in Philadelphia.
Okay, the reason I asked the question is because everyone talks about it being a national.
Right.
And the site, so I don't know what.
Right, no, and that's fine. I love that you're doing your research on it, but I just, for the record, it's not a national historic landmark.
So anytime you get that designation, really.
Well-
It means you can get money from the federal government, maybe.
I don't know what the
That-
details of that, but let's say there's a structure that's on the National Register, that you buy a beautiful home and it's on the National Register. That structure would be eligible for some funding to restore it, but it would be subject to all sorts of guidelines. But a National Register district gives certain degree of protection, but it doesn't prohibit, it does give protection, and that's why this board serves as a historic review board to watch out for our historic resources. And if something's being sought for demolition, we have to scrutinize that and anyway. So,
And it gives me an idea of what exactly that means.
right,
You get words are important.
yeah,
So I didn't have a problem with words are important. I just
yeah,
wanted to have an understanding of what those
Yeah.
words meant.
yeah. Thank you. Other people for comments? Paul?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Paul Richet for the record, 114 West Washington. I want to be careful with my words here, but it is a question to the board and the audience and folks concerned. When the subject property originally was, well, not originally, but was for sale 2-3 years ago, there was conversation that there were substantial deed restrictions associated with its historical value and what it meant. could be hearsay and it's not my word saying that those are accurate words, but I think maybe for the concern of the public and generally what's happening, I don't know where that lands with the board as far as, your all level of review or where that goes. But I think for the general public to understand, is this a private property right that we're having conversation with, potential development, or are there deed restrictions that are out of the hands of, several local people to hire attorneys and to look into and to dive into as far as what that looks like. And so perhaps, is there a way without too much burden to the board and within the community and with the current owners to alleviate what that concern is? Because when that circulated at the property sale with some of the deed restrictions that I personally heard myself, that for me would be something that would be very important to understand, because to have this come back to the community as either backlash to the board, the village, or otherwise with neighboring people and how that works to where it falls within whatever historic guidelines or other deed restrictions. I think it might be a question to the board is how that could be handled to where it relieves workload on your shoulders as a volunteer board, but makes a potential development, subject to demonstrating how that is not, somehow on deed restrictions, because that has circulated within the community.
Correct me if I'm wrong. There was an application for a subdivision prior to this
Yeah, I was trying to recall.
by the former owner. To subdivide 2 lots on Hamilton Street.
They wanted to, they were considering building a carriage house
Yeah.
for storage. And if somebody came, they could stay in, like a lot of people do now. But then I can't remember the outcome of that. Whether I think they went through it maybe when they got a different buyer. But
I thought, I was thinking that it was approved at that point.
I honestly can't remember.
But that was null and void, later on. But there was some review done at that point in time.
Thank you for your comments. When I was considering a lot of this afternoon, and I was reading the law and the requirements and so forth. That's why I asked you about the deed restrictions and covenants and began to think about Christ Church and Old Stone Mill. And personally, where I was thinking I was heading with this is to ask with the board to consider asking the applicant to give us a copy of the deed abstract for the village, for this board to review, to for the sake of potential buyers.
Yeah, I can email that.
For the sake of people that feel like due diligence needs to be done. And for this board, it's like, it's one thing for you to say you didn't see anything. Well, we would like to make sure, or I'm saying I would like to make sure that. So that's.
Yeah, I can email you.
But let's see who else has something to say here.
Yeah, please speak up, because this is wonderful. Teresa.
I'm Susan Haldeman. I live at 206 North Broad, directly across from the 2 homes that for residential entities that are going to be built. Whether they're a townhouse or a duplex or a single family, we still don't know. Dave and I moved here 6 years ago. And before we moved here, we came to visit, and everybody in the community was so full of pride and respect and history of this community. And it was one of the reasons that we wanted to live here. And then we had the chance to buy the gem that we're in. And it's been 6 years of restoring her to the best as we can historically by what you guys require. And we're determined to get it right. And there is just something that just doesn't add up to me here. And when you say that the impact environmentally, isn't showing up in the documents, that's fine. But when people come to this village and they visit and they stay here and they move here, they walk this town and I'm getting emotional, but that square, that embodiment there isn't one new home. They're all historical homes. And now they want to subdivide. And somehow that's not environmentally like an issue. You're going to have 3 new modern homes plunked down in the middle of this historic district. And what does that do to the district? And what does it say to like future generations coming through this town? They're just gonna see it as another chopped up district that nobody cared. And there was no integrity to these decisions. And I'm not ridiculing or anything, but I'm just really, I really need you guys to think about this because there's only 2 large properties in that district. We're one of them and Camp Manor is the other. And while we're living in that house, we're not subdividing. And I find it a little offensive that it wasn't brought up to us personally, but that's a whole other issue. But I think that it really needs to be considered.
You did
because
receive a letter in the mail though, right?
I got my certified letter in the mail. I don't know if anybody got a certified letter, but we got a certified letter.
Yeah.
And
It's by law.
yeah, and so I feel like, okay, there has to be some other level of respect to the history of the village and to what's going forward for future generations. I mean, it just seems like, okay, you chop that one up, then any other one is gonna be chopped up. And it just seems really.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's an important.
Take notice on this.
Just as a side note, the previous owner sold that immense block and built a new home right across the street on the waterfront. So to say there are no modern homes, that's not true. And across the street was,
But all surrounding it.
well, it's right across the street on the waterfront.
Completely different.
Well,
different rules.
Well, I have to say, it's in the same historic overlay district. Your letter said it's exempt from it. It's not. Both sides. Okay. Both sides of General Smith Drive are part of it. Until a little while ago, there was a house that was Japanese style and then that was redone. There's a ranch home. So there's a mix. And I'm just pointing out that it's not all 200-year homes in that block. But I'm saying it is, I agree with you. It's a beautiful block. It's a monument to the past. So.
But I think there are, where she's describing the area on North Broad.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We have the authority to in place deed restrictions on properties,
Do we have the authority to have them placed?
but to put a deed restriction on a property.
I'm not aware of it, but I mean, we can talk about things like building envelopes, like concept of mitigating the impact. But as proposed, 100-foot wide lot, there's not a lot of room. And I presume they're not talking about a 900 square foot house there, or we don't know what's being talked about. But there's not a lot of wiggle room in a 100-foot lot to place a property. So some open space is retained. I don't know. Yes.
Betsy Reed from the 202 North Broad Street, next to Dave and next to Tom. My family has owned my house for over 100 years. And that property has always been beautiful. And it's been once the new owners bought it and took down all that brush, it has become a beautiful place. And we were told at the beginning that they were never going to subdivide and that they were going to put in an English garden. And I agree, they do beautiful work on the other places that they own. But it's my understanding that they intend to sell these properties to someone else. Now, if they were gonna build, I'd say, they're gonna keep it the way they've done with everything else, but that's not necessarily the case in this case. And you had mentioned a community impact. And I think the majority of this community feels very strongly about it.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, my name's Milo Wiley and I'm with Betsy across the street too. I'm not gonna bring up all the legal stuff. I'm just gonna bring up from a point of somebody that's been in Sackets for over 50 years, not living here, but had been through Sackets. My parents had a camp not too far. I remember driving my car through here in the 70s, and excuse my language, it was a shithole. It was, because they didn't have an historical district. Once the town slowly, Henderson Harbor didn't change. What happened to them? They're one of the poorest cities. They put their luck on fishing, and when the fishing died, they died. I don't want to see this happen to this town. You know, when I go to that battlefield, man, I want to cry. If you're going to change anything in this town, I mean, shit, I had to fight to get a vinyl fence. You wouldn't let me put up a vinyl fence, but you'll let somebody put a house in a historical district? I mean, come on. What's wrong with that? It's probably because he's got a lot of money. Yeah, that's how it is. He intended to do this from the beginning. Yeah.
The developer.
He's a developer, of course he did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm Tom Deerline. I live at 201 North Broad Street. And this property or this subdivision is going to affect my piece of property on two sides, the back side and the side. So I won't be able to see Carl anymore and I won't be able to see Merle anymore. Aside from that, yeah, that's, you know, I talked to Rob once, yeah, we're gonna do this and doesn't want a pool, not gonna put extra driveways in, nice English garden. Hey, I supported that. And this is quite a change in the number of years since he bought that piece of property from childhood friend of mine, George Smith. So, you know, I'm really concerned and here to listen to everybody and
Thank you.
initially to express my concern.
Thank you.
Never mind what's going to be proposed to be built there that I will strongly stand in line to object to. And certainly want any deed restrictions researched on that property.
Yes.
I'm Hope Edwards. I'm a new resident to Sackets Harbor within the past 2 years. Concern I have is if there's going to be 3 lots there, what's the size of the houses that will be put on that piece of property? That's a concern because a little house isn't going to fit the ambiance of that General Smith and Broad Street. It's just,
Mine does. Yes, I disagree. Not to be disrespectful at all. My house is 1,100 square feet. I think it looks great. It does. I actually think small houses are old fashioned. That doesn't bother me. I go to that before 1900. So it could be nice.
okay.
Yeah, I don't want a McMansion either. But
Similarly, the Stevens residence is quite small.
yeah.
Yes, that's right.
But anyway, we don't know because that's, thank you, Hope. Other people interested in adding comments this evening?
Please feel free to add your comments. I think this is very important.
Yes.
Betsy Sully for the record. Been for 4 years. That is the concern, that not only that beautiful piece of property will be divided and changed, but that there's little control, it seems, over what will be built. I think we all want to feel like we have some say in what will be built there, how big it will be. Will they have to plant trees? I mean, it changes the whole texture. So I think that we as a group of village residents want to feel like we have a word in what will be built. I don't know if that's the case.
Thank you.
How would we get to the village we would have to have a petition for vote on this from the whole village?
I don't,
Well, it's a proposal. Like,
right. I'm not aware of any mechanism for that to happen. The act of subdivision, which this is subject to local zoning. The village has a zoning law, part of
Well, you can change the law.
right, but the law is what it is today. And I will add, just for everybody's knowledge, these lots conform to the zoning code. And honestly, I don't know what legal grounds we would have to say no, other than something like a deed restriction. Or, and this is where it's a little fuzzy, like the detriment to the historic features of the site, the integrity. That's a very hard thing to quantify, and there's no measure of that in our zoning law. There's no measure of that in that environmental review form. So it becomes a subjective thing of this board saying one thing and then someone saying, well, that's clearly a bad decision. We're going to challenge that. Or this board saying, oh, that would be a significant impact on the environment, we'll deny this. And then the applicant say, well, that's a bogus decision. We're going to challenge that. So it's a very subjective thing we're wrestling with here. Technically, the zoning law governs the size of the lots for each zoning district. These 3 lots comply with that. And then things like, does it have water? Does it have sewer? You know, is public safety, safe traffic? Are you going to have sidewalks? You're going to require landscaping? That's different than, are you going to wreck a 200-year-old parcel? I mean, it was like, I wonder when Clay Nan's house property was subdivided and created, at what time whoever owned it in the community thought that was okay, or Mr. Deerline, your house, I don't know when that was constructed.
1814,
Yeah, so,
it's a historic house.
yeah, so, you know, change is difficult for everybody. And I'm not passing judgment on anybody's opinion. I'm just offering this information in response to, can we get a petition? Yeah, you can, and you could present it to the village board, and they can.
And you should.
They can. I don't know what they would do.
And I think they should. And the reason we have a public hearing is to listen to what the public thinks and the neighbors think.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important as to what the neighbors think on this, and the neighbors have expressed.
How wide of an area have the people in the neighborhood been notified? I mean, I see a few of my closest neighbors that live within.
I think the required notice is like within 200 feet, 150 or 200 feet
Yeah.
of adjacent property.
So it's not many really per se.
I think there were 23 letters that went out.
Yeah, that's quite a few.
How about, I've seen, since we bought the house 6 years ago, I've seen at least 2 artifact seekers on that property already looking for stuff and finding stuff.
Oh, they're there all the time.
What's that?
They were there all the time before the snow came.
Right. Yeah, they were, and I.
So there's archaeological stuff.
Okay, any other? Yes.
I'm Mike Valvo.
I'm sorry, could you repeat your name again?
I'm Mike Valvo. I'm here just under a year this month. And I have a couple of questions. I'm at 114 East Washington. And I have a couple of questions about, I understand that the size of the property is within or the zoning restrictions. Is there a covenant for the volume and height of the structures that could be built there?
Yes, there's a limit on height. It's 35 feet throughout the village, and there's a percentage lot coverage depending on the zoning district.
Okay, yes. And it is in the overlay district, is that correct?
It is in the historic overlay
So,
district.
In the historic district, are there strictures into what style, what color, what materials, et cetera?
There are guidelines,
It's just guidelines.
right,
Okay.
with the ability to require those.
Okay. And so I have one more comment. You had, I don't know if this is with a vote, but you had voted, I think you voted on the fact whether this was a low to medium impact on the site.
Right, no significant adverse impact, and that's state jargon.
That's environmental. That's environmental.
I'm sorry?
That's environmental.
not necessarily
Environment-
aesthetic.
Environmental impact,
Correct.
okay, environmental impact, but I thought that you had mentioned a few other things with that.
Well, yeah, see, it's not only birds and water quality, but it is, historic integrity. Yeah, that's definitely fair game in that evaluation.
I propose that it would go to medium to high, at least medium, yeah. And I don't know if that's something that you have to vote on. I felt that.
You feel it's a greater environmental impact than this board determined this evening?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
One more question, a quick one.
Yeah.
So as the historic review board, the other function, do you have the authority to enforce the historic aesthetic that is written up in the documents that the law that
Do we have the authority to enforce the aesthetics?
yes, can you deny this based on the fact that it would change the aesthetic of the neighborhood and the aesthetic?
That's what I'm saying is the big $1 million question.
Yeah.
I had the answer to that. This would be a shorter meeting.
Yes,
It's a
thank you.
multi-million.
Okay, well,
Right.
Madam Chair, Paul Richey, for the record, just so everyone knows, Mike gets all my mail, but that's not for this board. It's his own. East
Your
Washington.
PO box.
So a couple things, and I don't think that in no way intended at this board, but I think part of the issue too in this community is understanding, I just heard something about what's happening with Bolton's place. I continue to get some updates about what's happening with LDC. Now we have, new proposed subdivision here. And in a plug, there is a community visioning session next Wednesday at 6:30 PM.
Yeah.
That this is the opportunity for all of us to sit down together to understand what's going on and hear it in one
Yeah.
place. Because I feel sometimes we're putting pieces together, and it's not a criticism of this board
Right.
whatsoever. It's your role or duty for us to understand that. But a lot of times there's moving parts
Yeah.
to the village that, we're hearing, we're struggling with funding for the school district and where taxes lie and where it sits. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of moving all over the board. So for this community to come together to understand some of this stuff, I think that forum next
Great
Wednesday
idea.
is a great opportunity for us to get together and
Hash it
all
out.
hear, and hear each
Yeah.
other's voices and understand.
Thank you. I was going to bring that up because this isn't the only application we have struggled with various issues on. And I've lived in the community quite a while. And when the people wrote these guidelines and regulations, Sackets Harbor, as I think you said, Milo, your name is? Right, did look like what you said, and you could barely give away property. And we've made not we, but our community has made a major transformation with a lot of personal investment, a lot of public investment, a lot of dedication from volunteers. And I think when we are faced with somebody saying, I didn't know I had to get a stupid permit for a sign for my business, or can I paint this door chartreuse? And it's like, well, there's a reason we look like we look, and there's a reason we have these controls, and it's important for our community to understand that. And that's one of the reasons this meeting is to launch this community conversation, because it's been over 20 years since these conversations have been had. And if it's just the village board that gets elected and they feel their job's to guard the budget, make sure we can flush our toilets safely and have safe swings at the playground, there's more to it than that. And unless they hear from people, then we just go along from year to year. So I would encourage you to think about, and the first intro, the intro to that is next Wednesday at the ballroom. And then beyond that, we'll be embarking on this community discussion. So, but
Well, too much. It was just a question about the letters. Now, Dave said we were gone all last week, but the one was sent out 6 days prior. It doesn't give us any time to kind of do anything
Right.
with it, but also too, the rest of the town should be made.
well, that's a problem, that people don't subscribe to the newspaper. The requirement is to have a legal notice. I'm a bit of a nerd. I read legal notices, but most people don't. They don't know. So, it's up to have an educated, informed citizenry. And otherwise you're crying about decisions that are made that, so I'm just saying that the letters,
I'll say you guys sent certified letters, not all boards do that.
yeah, well, we try to follow the law.
So we were actually got it.
Okay, so,
My standpoint is that they need to formalize it. I know we've got some formal letters, but they need to formalize that, sign, and each of you sign it. And the number of people that have signed that, I think, is going to be important. Because right now, from looking at the zoning law and everything you've gone over, Janet, it's pretty hard for us as a committee to vote no.
Well, if I might, I made some notes and I'm newer into this seat. So, I'm really interested in how many people showed up. And it really, I've been coming to these meetings for, quite a while now, and this is the most I've ever seen activity, and it shows it shows the passion. I'm torn because what I'm learning on this is, my responsibility and I'm speaking to the board with this as well, is my responsibility as a board member on the planning board, to not just look at this. I mean, I guess, is that the vote? Is it just legal, or are we taking, these concerned, community members, and are we a voice for them? That's where I'm kind of torn and trying to understanding my role. Because if it's black and white legal, then like, Merle said, it's tough. But if it's considering, if I can justify a no with, if that's the way, I was going to vote I could justify it by hearing the voices and the concerns and the overwhelming demographic of the neighbors. But that's all. I'm trying to understand this whole
I
concept.
think it is kind of a legal thing. The lots conform. But I'm very aware of and concerned for the public, interest in opposition. There's nothing that says we have to decide this evening. I would recommend we table this.
Yeah, I would prefer.
I would ask if the board is in agreement for the applicant to provide us a copy of the full abstract. Not your interpretation of it, but give us whether it's 75 pages or whatever.
I don't think I would have shared.
No, but they can get it for you, and give you some time to figure out how you would like to progress with your perspective with the village board, but at least delay until another meeting, and we can see what the abstract says about deed restrictions, covenants. We can check with our attorney.
Is there anybody online that has comments? But do they have, and is there anybody that has a view in support of the subdivision? Okay. Just trying to see if there's any other.
Right, good thought.
One other possible thing. Sackets Harbor has a Facebook page.
Yep.
If you posted this kind of a notice on that Facebook page, I'm sure you'd have more people that aren't falling under the legal requirement for you notifications.
Right.
It would show up and express their opinions.
Right.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Okay.
1 second, Janet.
I was just simply going to respond to that question of in favor that I think that a lot of the comments that I heard in myself, to have a board that's willing to listen to the community and take it as you have and to table it for further conversation, just a lot of gratitude for that. Because I think a lot of this is process learning and understanding legal rights and, what is fair and private property holders are capable of doing and working with the board. So I'm just grateful for all of you.
Yeah, and I want to say I'm sorry if I seemed like I was rude, but I'm just passionate.
It's okay. You don't have to apologize. It's great.
So Merle mentioned that he thinks we should form a petition.
Well, I think so too, because I understand what you're saying, Janet, on the legal things, and I keep reading over why we have public hearings.
Right,
And there's a reason why we have public hearings, and that's for the public to voice
right.
their pros and cons to something. And it sounds like there's a lot of disapproval. I don't know whether those letters are 200 feet or 500 feet.
No, it's either 150 or 200, but it's in
Okay,
this, it's
because
in the
if
law.
Municipality, it says lying within 500 feet.
No, it's
So,
200 or 150.
so there were quite a few people notified. And it seems to me like there's probably 10 to 15 people here that are voicing concerns.
Well, not only that, you've got snowbirds who would be here, but are.
Why? And they buy this because of the way, we've got friends that are getting rid of their place in Florida to stay here. They love this town so much. And it's because of the way things are done. That's all. We're gonna lose this.
Sorry, but that brings up an interesting point. A lot of that whatever that's 150 feet, 200 feet, 500 feet, I think a lot of that is for, like, I want to put a shed in my backyard. I want to, or I want to
That's
change.
for subdivision or special permits.
Oh, that's because I was going to say, it should be.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But it's probably
I'll read more.
only because within 200 or 500 feet.
Special permits.
It just seems really small for a subdivision, a property, that's all. Because of the impact that could have, such as.
Major.
Special permits, variances, and subdivisions.
Do you think we need more about what they plan
I've,
construct?
yeah,
I mean, that will be a separate approval or disapproval.
right, that's
process.
totally separate. I mean, if,
I'm more interested in what, looking at the deed. I'm more interested in seeing what is legally we're bound to.
we have a consensus that we want the applicant, we've tabled this and we requested the applicant provide the complete abstract, like 2 weeks before our next meeting. So there's time to review it, preferably sooner, but
Is that your motion?
yeah, I'm asking you, are you,
I'd like to table this. for future meeting.
and request that
We can
the
review.
applicant get a complete copy of the abstract to the board at least 2 weeks prior to the meeting.
Yes, and I think that'll give some time for the community to kind of get some understanding as well.
Since it was brought up by by you, a possible parking lot across from my house. The village has been very good to us and they've been wonderful, but there's certain things that no letters went out on.
Yeah, that's something that's
For
not.
example, the park next to me, now had some open hearings, but no letters went out on this. No letters went out on the drain that they put all the way down Hamilton Street, all the way to the water,
Yeah, I wasn't involved with any.
and
There
there won't be any, if the village decides to do this, they're not going to send out any letters to people. That's-
That's
Yeah.
where you have to be involved as citizens and ask questions of your village board. Hey, I heard that-
I think that's our legal right.
That's absolutely.
Oh, sure.
Thank you for listening.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Thank
your
you for-
involvement.
Participation, absolutely. Okay, you don't feel you need to leave. We have a lot of good acts coming up.
It's gonna show up too.
Yes.
No, not this month. Okay,
We have to, did we vote on table?
all right, so I make a motion that, thank you, Maura, that we table this and request that the applicant provide a complete copy of the complete abstract at least 2 weeks prior to our next meeting.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Craig. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Oh,
Incidentally,
and
the
wait a minute.
snowbirds, if you call them, which, most of my street are snowbirds at this point.
And I'd like to make a motion,
they
we suspend the public hearing so we can pick that up next month. Is that,
So we can resume it again.
yeah, to be resumed?
Yes.
Good.
I'm not sure that's the correct term, but you
I
get the
second it.
idea.
I second.
Thank you, Merle. All in favor? Aye.
And I think posting on, the friends and family on Facebook to, without any expense, reach out and say, this is scheduled for another public hearing on such and such a date, such and such. You can do that?
Right.
Yeah.
That's best if you do that.
Those administrators.
Yeah. I can't do that, but you can do that.
But I did receive a call from one of the people that are down south for the winter. And they hadn't had the time to respond because they got their mail kind of late and just saw it. So they were notified.
Likewise.
These all the same thing.
They're all the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one.
Here, you do it for me. I have other things to do.
I owe you a check too, okay? Application fee.
Yeah, you.
Okay, because you know what it is. I have a check. I wasn't sure what the amount was.
Yeah.
We see you.
Yeah, and I think you're gonna be charged for the cost of the letters.
That's fine. If she has that, I'm gonna do it all in one check. Okay, I do it all.
I don't know what it is.
Okay, she has it all. All right. Did you want a copy? Did you guys? Okay. Yep. Did you want to keep a copy?
Okay,
Yeah.
Copy? So next-
oh, I do need a copy and
I got a pile of them. I don't know.
And the clerk needs a copy. And why don't you give one to Merle?
Oh, trash, you're gonna say.
Okay, next item on the agenda is application 2603.
Hey, the board's still in session.
If you can continue your conversation out in the lobby, that'd be helpful.
We're still in session.
Thank you. Okay, so we have application 2603, Jane Shee, West Main Street. The applicant is requesting site plan review to replace the existing shingle roof with metal roofing. And it's on the rear portion of the building. The building's in the village core and the historic overlay district and the National Register district. Order in the boardroom. You're an applicant. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so, this application, we reviewed a couple items last year for this. This is the bubble tea and the painting, the signage. And during this winter, the applicant had ice dams, I guess is the term, on the back portion of the roof. That's the only roof you see. It is a shingled roof. You can see it from the side of the building. And she would like to use metal roofing. And I explained that I'm aware of two forms of metal roofing, the kind with the seams that run from the peak to the eaves. And then there's the kind that looks like shingles. And we approved a residence with that style, the Toppings home on Dodge Avenue, near this subdivision. So she doesn't know which one she would like to use, and her contractor hasn't been able to get up to inspect the damage on the roof because of the ice. So what I foresee, and the owner, the applicant is not able to be here this evening. It's Chinese New Year, this family holiday. And I said, of course, that's fine. And what I foresee us doing is the environmental assessment form and looking at her application and then probably tabling it, waiting for her to get with her roofer and decide which metal roof product and what color. And she said, you guys can pick the color. And I said, no, you pick the color. But she wants it repaired because there's been a substantial amount of interior damage on the brick walls. And once they can get in there and do the work, they want to do it. So I said, we'll take care as much as we can at this meeting. And hopefully by March, you will have had the time to get up there, excuse me, and talk with your contractor about what's best for the situation. There's a possibility it would be a patch or repair thing with the shingle. But she thinks she'd rather move toward the metal product and avoid further leak, but she just doesn't know yet. So I said, let's get this. And if it was strictly repairing with shingle with like material, this board really has no review. Jim Corbin can just approve it, as long as it matches what's existing. But we decided it would be best to get the application submitted so that if they want to move ahead with the metal, the stage is set for that. So her application is the general zoning, site plan, the environmental assessment form. And then I asked Caroline to research our files and find the metal roof product that we have approved. That's the shingle format at the topping residence. And that's not what she doesn't know if that's what she wants. That's one of the two types. And then the other kind with the seams, there are numerous structures on Main Street and beyond that have that. The hotel right behind this building and across the street, there's a couple. So it'd probably be the color. And it would be in addition to the material. So the environmental assessment form, as with the other, she had most of it filled out because we went through this. And I have just one or two places that added the historic overlay district. So I'll give this copy to you. And I would say, based on the description of the project and magnitude, it's appropriate to determine that there would be no significant adverse impact on the environment for replacing the shingle roof with a metal roof. I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
Thank you, Merle. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Beyond that, I'd say maybe a little discussion. Do any thoughts, anything I should impart to the applicant after this meeting?
Well, the question I have, and I don't know why it's taken this area several hundred years to realize that we're in one of the coldest, snowiest areas east of the Mississippi. And metal roofs supposedly, can get rid of the snow easier and warm up more quickly. I don't know what the difference is I know aesthetically what the difference is in between those two roofs with the long seams and the one with that looks like roofing, regular roofing, asphalt roofing. Don't know whether one is better than the other for snow sliding off.
Well, that's where her roofer should help her with
Yeah.
this, I would think.
And I think that's an important consideration.
But not our
That's
consideration.
not ours.
Pardon?
That's not our consideration, though.
You mean it's not our consideration?
What she chooses, whether she wants the seam type or the shingle.
You don't care.
No, well, if it was my building, I would, but it's not our consideration of what she puts on it, as long as it is within the confines of the products that are.
Merle's,
Allowed.
I thought you were saying what is better for our climate.
What is that was kind of a comment that I was making, but you said what we have in our file is the one that's asphalt roofing.
Right.
So it's absolutely within our purview
Right.
to determine whether or not the seams are acceptable or not.
Well, what I I guess I should have been more clear about that. We have approved a number of the seam metal roofs.
Oh, we have, okay,
Yeah, on the Sandwich Bar, the Gordon Jacobs building,
okay.
the hotel had it. What other? I mean, it's prolific in this community now.
Okay.
And the reason it would need review under the historic district is that it's a change of material. It's
Okay.
going from a traditional shingle to a metal roof. Either variety would need review and approval. And
So
then,
you're right, Craig.
yeah.
I'm just trying to get the process.
Okay, so we did advertise a public hearing, so let's have that. Get that off the list. Anybody would like to comment on the proposed new roofing material on the back portion of the building with the bubble tea store.
I guess it would be nice to have because I'm trying to even just like think of it in my head, like which part of the building
Yeah.
is getting a roof. So like, it would be nice to know.
My only concern aesthetically would be from the street or from wherever, can you see two different roof styles on the same building?
That's what I'm
That-
kind of getting at.
And
Like, I want to be able to visualize.
I think so. We would ask for a photo of the structure and the roofing material. I walked past there with this in mind. The main 2/3 of the building is the original building. The back part where she has Airbnbs is added on at some point with a pitch roof. The main part, you don't see the roof. It's not flat, but it's sloping toward the hotel in the back. What you see is the trim. It's probably a rolled roof or metal roof on the roof surface itself. And then there's like a fascia. I don't know what you call it when it's a metal roof, but there's like a 6-inch trim or 5-inch
Flashing or
flashing. Yeah, that sort of thing coming over the edge. And that's a brownish color, kind of matching the brick, or I don't know what it matches, but so there really is no transition other than, okay, here's the brick building with the sloping roof. You don't see the roof, you see the edge. And then there's the lower structure with the peak roof with shingles. And so the question is, what does she want? Does she want the seam metal or does she want the shingle metal? What color? And then that's what we would review.
So can I make a motion that we have an incomplete application?
Yep.
And then we'll table this till next month or whenever the final material, color, details are provided.
The photo of the structure and the roof that she's selecting material.
I'll second that.
I would like to have our public hearing,
Oh, sorry.
so we get that done. Any comment on this proposed roof? Yes, sir.
I'm only doing this because I shoveled my roof today. Metal roofs are, I think, great for snow shedding, but also just in consideration setbacks and location of where that snow sheds, because when it comes down hard and fast, that it doesn't create a public safety hazard. But in my opinion, if doable based on setbacks and location, I would prefer not to do what I did today on the shingle roof. It was sloping, but it is, when they shed, they shed.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I saw a guy shoveling one today and I said, you better be careful. And he said, I will. Next thing I know, he fell. But he didn't fall off. He slid. I did. I was like, I'm out of here.
Did you try to find?
Last winter, his roof off.
Really?
So,
Oh, yes.
okay. Any other comment? Yeah, close the public hearing. All right, so now we have a motion to table it, or with incomplete application. We want a photo of the structure indicating the portion that would be roofed and the selection of roof material proposed. Is that correct?
Yes.
I seconded it.
Thank you, Craig and Merle. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. The third and final item. 2604. Rich Kuna is the applicant, 212 West Main Street, site plan review for property recognized as the brew pub. To remove a set of double doors. Replace that with siding to match the rest of the exterior of the structure. Replace 2 windows on the waterfront side. Increase in interior seating from interior renovations. And a request for relief from the parking requirements if this board deems necessary. This property is also in the village core, as is the bubble tea store. And it's in the historic overlay district and the National Register district. And we have a public hearing scheduled for this evening. The application contents include the general zoning, site plan review, 13-page environmental assessment form, And color photos showing portion of the structure with the location of the double doors that are detached now, and the way it would look with the detached doors gone and replaced with siding, thanks to Photoshop or something like that. And then the waterfront side, existing conditions where the windows proposed to be replaced with the picture window, lack of a better word. And then the last attachment is a description of the parking situation with the property, which relates to a portion of the law we are required to look at, which is controlled by the square footage of the structure, interior use area, how many parking spaces are required. And in this case, also considering the, as a possibility, the deck, which is seating area. And then a list of, should this board choose to waive parking requirements, which would require village board approval, we could consider that and recommend to the village board waiving parking requirements. And those are the criteria that we would be looking at and the village board would look at. So
Where would the increase in seating take place, in the old
because
bowling area?
correct. There's interior changes and the contractor's here and Dave Elbateri is helping the owner. So at this point, with questions like that, I would like to turn it over. I think you're part of this, right? I don't know your name. So Dave and
Yeah, this is Dan Richards.
Dan Richards, and you are the contractor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, where the restrooms are now, that's gonna be dining area. That's why they're changing the window. The window, existing windows, I'm sure, probably everyone's been in the restrooms. The windows are boarded up on the inside, so you actually don't realize they're there. But since it's becoming dining area, then they want diners there to have the same view of the lake as the ones in the large dining room. And then the restrooms are moved to where the tanks were.
Are they right beside the front desk now?
Yeah, it's
Right
right
behind it.
right behind the,
Yeah.
so they're between the front desk, that little,
Yeah.
entrance area, and then where the main dining, walk down that hallway, so,
That's why it's so cold in there, in the bathroom.
yeah, probably. Yeah, and you see the photo, I mean, well, first of all, they're sort of enclosed from the inside and kind of nondescript. At least the window will match all the other windows along the waterfront side.
Is it the same size?
Yes.
It looks it, but I wasn't sure if it was longer. Okay, so anything more?
No, I mean, the doors were rotted, that's why they were removed. They weren't necessary anymore. It's, where the tanks were, that was a newer addition that was put on in the late 1980s, early 1990s, when that was first converted, I think, into a restaurant. I can't remember the name.
I think it was called Hampton Depot.
Yes, Hampton Depot, yes. And so that addition was put on where the tanks were at that point, I think. And the doors were to move the tanks in. They were just regular kind of double doors. And so they were rotting, and the tanks aren't necessary. So that's where the restrooms are now. So they just proposed to wall it off. Match the siding as it is on that side of the building, so.
Would you explain your parking information?
If I can, yeah. So, yeah.
Elaborate.
I went through all the old files. I didn't see any discussion of the zoning parking requirements.
Do you want to give the background a little bit on the files, what files you're talking about?
Well, the files for
the property,
the group for the property. Caroline helped me find the box, and there was applications made. There was some from, I think, the original, but not much, meaning when it became Hampton Depot, there was a set of plans, but that was about all. And then there was 2011, 2013, that's when they put on the deck.
And that was quite a long drawn out saga.
Yeah, for other
Right.
other waterfront reasons and stuff, yeah. But I didn't see any, I was trying to see what had been approved for parking before. I mean, there's a parking lot there, which obviously stay. And that's where most of that parking comes from. But I couldn't find anything in the file where they discussed the parking requirements and whether or not they were met. So I was trying to find what had been approved before. So anyway, the measurements are from plans, and just basically the increase, where the tank, the replacement of the tanks with restrooms is kind of a wash because that's not really considered customer sort of dining area. So the only net increase in dining area is where the restrooms were, and that's what reflects this, where the increase in screen.
So your paper says the current interior customer space is 1,200 square feet required in 17. Is that with the renovation or prior?
No, that's as it is right now, before the renovation.
Okay, and then there's exterior, if you count the exterior, which it did.
Yeah, and
in
I got
2000.
that square footage off.
Right.
Off
28.
The plan from the 2011.
So 28 spaces and 17 spaces are total required. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, and then you said the
So-
proposed changes, meaning overall with the interior changes, it would be 21 spaces instead of 17.
Yeah.
Okay.
And since there are 20 spaces, I check my math because that's. I with the math, I can't. But anyway, so my computation was.
Yeah, I see. I follow your.
Yeah. Okay.
So if we follow the strict letter of the law, it's missing 29 parking spaces.
Right. Because of the outside deck.
Because of the deck. So, but the deck has been there, so it's been deficient.
Right.
For years.
Yes.
What's the new deficiency is.
That wasn't brought up when it was approved, the deck.
It was.
Brought up in the context of like noise from the deck. I think once again, neighbors, I think.
Yeah.
From the context of noise and basically the number of people that are going to be out of the deck making noise and bother.
But not parking.
There was no discussion of parking.
And it was a different zoning law then.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm not sure the requirements changed. Yeah, it was a different zoning law.
But we didn't consider the parking spaces and the village wanted the deck. I mean, the dock.
Yes. Yeah.
Wrapped around.
That's really what was thought. A lot of the discussion was
dock.
about the dock. And so I don't know if they just
So really,
do it, just forgot about it, or just.
so really this new interior space would push it to 4 more spaces. It's deficient by 4 more.
Right.
It's already deficient by 25.
Yeah, and there are arguably, spaces sort of in between the brew pub and which owns Goodfellas, but back in there, and I didn't bother going to see where property lines were, but I think if people wanted to park, they could like in back of the old Anchor and that sort of thing. I didn't count those, maybe some if we, needed to count those. Of course, there's a new parking lot across the street, which is zoning law says you can.
Yeah.
Consider. But I didn't see, I went through, there was a box full of files and I went through every file and basically page by page, and I didn't see any discussion before about parking, whether they met the parking and any discussion about parking.
I don't remember.
We'll count my bike parking spots down there too.
What's that?
Where I park my bike, I'll count those too.
Oh, okay. Put that in.
Did Mr. Kuna does he have that where the Anchor used to be, that lot now also? Yeah.
Okay, let's take care of the environmental assessment form. The applicant did a very thorough job. that I only saw one omission about the percentage of the site that's well drained, so I modified that for you. But, I would say, uh, it's in the historic district, so that's typically what we'd be concerned about, but, I'd say it's appropriate to determine that there is no significant adverse impact on the environment here.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So we've taken care of that. I'd like to open the public hearing. Nobody online for this? Okay, with no comment, we'll close the public hearing. Okay, so we have removal of the doors as an action and replacing it with siding that matches the building. So that's one consideration. And that would be under our historic district guidelines. The building's already sided in that material. They're not changing the color. The doors are not an integral part of the building fabric, I don't think. So, we can discuss this, but that seems to be a rather minor thing. Two windows that are being replaced, that's on the waterfront side. Personally, I don't think those windows are very much in keeping with the old train station look, but they're there. That's what's approved. So, I guess in the future, if he wants to invest a lot of money and make different windows, but at this point, adding one more to open up the viewscape to the harbor seems appropriate to me, but that's just my opinion. And then the other action is the parking. So it's picture window, replacing the doors with siding, and then the parking. And I would add, we've struggled with this parking, whether it's the paint and sip business type thing that's like getting compliance with our law. There's only so much on-site parking in a historic community. We have municipal lot, we have the public safety building, there are places to park. It's very hard to get to say the parking requirements are met. And we have been kind of lenient in that regard. I think because this is a increase in patron space and the law states it needs village board approval to waive that, I would like to take that direction, which is different than a realtor that's going to have somebody in there a couple times a month and they don't have any off-street parking. But I feel this is different. The brew pub's a major part of the downtown, but that's just my opinion, that I feel like I would like to waive the parking requirements and throw it to the village board.
I agree.
It says,
I mean,
it says we have to.
What's
It
that?
says here we have to.
We do, right.
Well,
I mean,
and you make that recommendation to the.
right, and I think what's important is it has been operating with this zone law with a deficiency of 25 spaces.
Now,
And now there's more patron space requiring 4 more.
right, but you mentioned the parking lot across the street. That was expanded after. Did you take that into consideration?
No, you
Okay.
you can't sort of, you can't count that as part of your park. I mean, no individual business can say.
The law says,
But the
Yeah.
law, the waiver part of the law with that little light up says that the village, you and the village board can consider the availability of public parking. So I think you should, because that's been an increase in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The number of parking spaces required may be reduced by the planning board based upon one or more of the following considerations, except that a reduction in the number of required spaces in the village core must also be approved by the village board. The following considerations are what are listed on that handout.
Yeah, I just copied and pasted. So.
And then it says, any decision to reduce parking requirements shall require written findings indicating the basis for such reduction. So if we are inclined to recommend to the village board that we waive the parking requirements, the size of the structure, the site, and the limitations, availability of on-street parking, availability of municipal off-street parking. And I guess my point, as I said a few minutes ago, is it's been functioning in deficit of 25 spots. And this interior change is making 4 more necessary. You know, it's like, and yes, he owns property right in front of it, but I don't think it's necessarily in the village's best interest to have another parking lot right on Main Street. That would be good commercial space. You know, it's like to jump at that and say, oh, let's make him use that. It's like, I don't think that's a great idea. It'd be better to have a business in there, a structure that's appropriate, you know, but that's for the village board.
Actually, if I might.
Yeah.
Reading this, I'm gonna read this out loud just to make sure I'm not losing my mind. It seems like the ability to reduce the parking is on us, not the village board. The way this reads, the number of parking spaces required may be reduced by the planning board based upon one or more of the following considerations, except that a reduction in the number of required spaces in the village core also must be approved by the village board. Am I understanding that to be that we're not taking away parking spots in the village core? This is just a reduction of requirement based on the business use.
No, I think we are. I think you.
Are we removing parking spots that are
No.
already there?
You're removing.
Reducing the parking requirements. We're
In
saying,
the village core.
Well, I understand, but we're not reducing the amount of parking spaces that are already here in the village core.
no, it says to any decision to reduce parking requirements.
Number of parking spaces required may be reduced by the planning board based upon one or more of the following considerations. Except with an exception that the reduction in the number of required spaces in the village core also must be approved by the village board.
Right, so for a use that's in the village core, if we're saying, you know, whether it was like, if it was in the village residential by the Legion, for example, or the Lawler Hardware Building,
Okay.
that's not the village.
I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to make sure I understand.
I love that you're raising those questions. Okay, let's pick this apart. The removing the door and replacing it with siding. How's that go?
Yeah, it looked good to me.
Okay, so, okay, on the part with the removing the door and replacing it with siding to match. And that siding is all over the place, diagonal to the right, diagonal to the left, vertical, horizontal, but whatever matches in that particular place. That's one part. The next part is replacing 2 windows, the small one that I think is in a bathroom that's boarded up, and the larger one that's a 6/6 double hung window. Replacing that with 1 large picture window that's identical to the other 3. Is that correct? So, we good with that? Or-
Yeah, I mean aesthetically, I think it looks nicer, obviously.
Yeah.
I think it's fine. I think
Yeah.
Mr. Kunis got, you know, a history of, you know, doing things that
I don't know, like
are
the
okay.
historic significance of what's there.
Right, no,
I
and I wouldn't advocate change. I wouldn't
Yeah.
want a different one, so in lieu of that, I'm not gonna say, well, you have to buy 4 new picture windows. It's. Okay, and then number 3, with the interior renovations, that's the reason we have to look at this, because the interior is changing.
You're not looking at the renovations, you're looking at.
But the parking, but because of the renovation, not because of the windows, not because of removing the door. The only reason we're discussing this is they're changing the inside, adding additional patron space, picks up the parking requirement. And I would recommend we grant a waiver to that because it's been operating for years, not meeting the parking requirements and requiring 4 additional seems unreasonable.
And there used to be a competing business, I know, same ownership.
With even more yeah, good point. So we have, I feel we have consensus on all 3 elements here. Okay, someone want to make a motion to say all that?
Do we want to say,
Go ahead. I'll make a motion that we approve the application in all 3 components. And if we got to spell it out individually, it would be the window, but the windows, the door replacement, as well as the reduction recommendation to the board and the parking reduction recommendation to the village board.
Did we ever do the complete application part?
No, we didn't.
Yeah. I'll make a motion that we complete the application. Or have it complete.
Thank you, Mike and Merle. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, and then jump back to Craig's move.
They already said it all once.
Approve the application as requested.
Yeah, in all 3 parts, the windows, the door, as well as the recommendation to the village board for parking relief.
Right, and the rationale which we would identify is that the availability of on-street parking, the availability of municipal off-street parking, and the business has operated for years not meeting requirements, and the renovations, you know what I'm saying? That it theoretically requiring 4 more seems okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Go to work. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Alves.
Dave, you didn't want to weigh in on the last one or the one earlier tonight?
The subdivision.
The first one, I honestly didn't know, I just heard about it and I didn't know a lot about it. Actually.
I was just joking, but
Yeah,
thought you were.
I'm not.
Maybe.
You got a month.
You got, I'll be kidding. Dave and I are working on that subdivision application, updating the forms and like the historic review board forms. That this is an example of what is very important, that we have those forms to. But we're both procrastinators. So, all right, I'd like to make a motion, we adjourned.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Nice.